keeping with the dignity of this service, I'd like to remind you all, please make sure your cellular phones are turned off.
מכתם לדוד שמרני אל כי חסיתי בך אמרת לאדוני אדוני אתה טובתי בא לך לקדושים אשר בארץ המה ואדירי כוכב צבאם ירבו עצבותם אשר מרו בלסך נזקיהם מדם ובלשא את שמותם על שפתי אדוני מנת חלקי וחוסי אתה תומך גורלי חבלים נפלו לי בנים ממעף נחלת שפרה עלי אברך את אדוני אשר יעצני אף לילות יסרוני חיליותי שיביתי אדוני לנגדי תמיד כי ממני בא למות לכן שמח ליבי ויגל כבודי אף בשרי ישכון לבטח כי לא תעזוב נפשי לשאול לא תיתן חסידך לראות שחת תודיעני אורח חיים שובע שמחות את פניך נעימות במינך נצח.
Donald and Lynn, Richard and Cheryl, Brian and Hayan, Suzanne and Robert, Nancy Adams, grandchildren, family, friends. We're here today to pay our respects to Bill. Bill, who was such a cherished father and father-in-law, a dear brother-in-law, a proud grandfather, a loved uncle, a cherished friend, someone who meant a lot, who means a lot to many people, to so many of us. I'm sure there are some of you who are still coming to terms with his passing. I'd like to call on Rick to give the first eulogy.
Well, thank you all for joining us today and for supporting our family at this time. You know, Dad loved life and lived his to the fullest. He had a youthful spirit with boundless energy and enthusiasm each and every day of his 98 plus years. He was a warm and caring person and always had a positive outlook. Dad made the best of things. For Dad, the cup was always half full. He had a true joie de vivre. He had wonderful social skills and enjoyed meeting people from all walks of life. Dad loved a good party. He was so friendly, affable, and engaging. Our home was always an open door to our friends at any hour of the day or night. We learned a lot from him about how to interact with others and to be so welcoming. He was so very personable. He often came up with cute nicknames for people he knew well. For our own family, he referred to my sister Suzanne as his tomato in reference to his love of tomatoes. Our cousin Ellen David, the actress, as actrisa. He coined the name Cement for my wife Cheryl in reference to her adoring and wonderful ability to keep our family glued together. Dad was sensitive about not ever appearing old. As teenagers and young adults, we would be told to fondly refer to him as our Uncle Bill, so as not to let others know that he had an older children. It was not that he dismissed us. On the contrary, he was so very proud of each of his kids, watching each of us grow up, of our accomplishments and of our growing families. He loved the grandchildren. Dad was a cool dude. Each of our friends and extended family, younger nieces and nephews and others who met him, thought my dad was just cool. In the 60s and early 70s, he wore bell-bottom pants, had gold chains, not to mention his afro haircut. He had hot convertible muscle cars, a gold convertible Firebird 400 with white leather interior and white wall tires. My brother Don impressed his date with it on his first prom night. He had a beautiful cobalt blue Dodge Charger with twin Hemis on the hood, and of course his Mercedes SL. He so loved to head out for a drive on a sunny day with the top down while listening to 60s and 70s pop songs on the radio. I think that sitting in the driver's seat with the wind and the blue sky reinforced his free spirit. Dad was extraordinarily healthy and fit. From my earliest memories, he attended gym classes at the Y at least 3 times a week. His training regimen was way ahead of its time. He always had a healthy diet. He especially loved tomatoes. Every dinner, Mom served him a whole sliced tomato on a side plate with a white linen napkin. We are convinced that tomatoes contributed to his longevity. Maybe it has something to do with antioxidants, but I digress. I can't remember my dad even ever taking a pill, an aspirin, or a Tylenol until he was well into his 90s. He loved to ski. Skiing down those white slopes, surrounded by the mountain peaks in invigorating temperatures with the stillness in the air, surely offered the peace, tranquility, and beauty in life that he so cherished. At age 33, he had a very severe skiing accident, shattering his right leg. He required a prolonged hospitalization, bedridden in traction for 3 months, and then an additional 8 months in a cast on crutches. His orthopod, Dr. Goldwyn, advised him to hang up his skis permanently. Against all medical advice and after years of intensive physiotherapy and sheer determination, he returned to the slopes. Dad was so impressed with the care he received from the Canadian Ski Patrol that he joined the organization in 1963, initially with the team at Mont Gabriel and then Avila, Saint-Sever, and Chanticleer. He patrolled just about every weekend, from the opening day to the final closing day of the season. I remember he drove us up every Saturday and Sunday to the Laurentians. My first ski days were around the age of 2 or 3, learning to ski between his legs. He would lace up our boots, get on our skis, and off we would go. At the end of the day, after all the lifts closed and the patrol had finished their final sweep to clear the mountain, we were then told he had a patrol meeting. This really meant, as I learned at an older age, that there was no actual meeting. Instead, he went to the bar to have a beer with the patrol buddies. Meanwhile, as kids, we were left to take the cafeteria trays and use them as toboggans, sliding down the mountain and passing time till the meeting ended. In his volunteer role as a patroller for over 50 years, he was honored with the highest Canadian Ski Patrol Award. He helped to found the Ski Patrol's Decagon Club that recognized patrollers having served more than 10 years, and all of this culminated in his induction to the Canadian Ski Hall of Fame. Over the years, he traveled to many national and international destinations. He has a special orange winter jacket densely lined with crests from the ski areas he visited around the world. I remember one summer when we took a family touring trip down the east coast of the US, visiting New York, Washington, Norfolk, Virginia, and Cape Canaveral as we motored to our grandparents' apartment in Florida. Dad had borrowed our grandfather's Cadillac for this road trip. Now, picture us driving through rural Georgia in a Cadillac with a ski rack and a pair of skis on the roof. We got very strange looks from the locals. You see, my dad wasn't actually planning to stay in Florida. Instead, his plan was to fly to Portillo, Chile, to ski there for a few days. Dad always told us that at the end of a ski day, never say it's your last run of the day. For him, the last run was an omen for an accident to happen. Well, Dad, I think you had a great run. And now today, we do not see this as being your last run. Rather, I see that you're headed to the highest peak where the snow conditions are perfect. Lots of powder, the sun is shining, and you are there with Mom and all of your family and friends who have passed on before you. And as you always said at the end of our family get-togethers, I say to you now, Le Chaim.
I'd like to call on Suzanne to give the next eulogy.
It's wonderful to see so many caring faces here. I was his one and only. His Tochter is Tamila. I had his knee, his ear, and his green eyes. He was my safe place, soft spot in the loud and rough and tough household. He spoke gently, and he got me. My arrival was shouted out from the back balcony in Saint Laurent. It's a girl. And my birth story is wound in with my father's life-changing ski accident. He was on crutches after being laid up in traction for months with a shattered leg, and my mom worried about her 35-year-old husband throughout her pregnancy with me, all taking care of 3 young boys. But for my dad, his ski accident culminated in him finding his purpose and his joy. His ski life set the stage for the best part of him. The fresh, crisp air, the bright white snow, the glorious mountains. He traveled the world to ski. His love of skiing overflowed out of him. I can still remember his cold cheek and the smell of that orange bain de soleil. He had a fabulous winter tan. And Dad was such a friendly guy. He was easygoing. He had good humor. He was always smiling. It didn't matter how old you were. He connected with people of all ages and forged many friendships through skiing and other interests. He said people on the chairlift were friends he just hadn't met yet. Some of these friendships he maintained for decades. He had nicknames for many, but he had a knack of making you feel like you were the very special one. A few of his friends were really more like family. He bonded deeply with a very tight group, a select few. You know who you are. You looked after Dad so keenly. You called every day, checking in on him, cheering him on the last few years. They're beyond wonderful. I do want to thank Peter and Karen Yaffe in particular, though, for bringing Dad some oxygen on the Friday of Jean-Baptiste weekend. They truly came to the rescue when he needed it. How can you encapsulate a lifetime with mere words? Dad was patient. He was kind. He was never boastful. He never had a bad thing to say about anybody. He was always smiling and positive, his eyes twinkling. He crackled with vitality and energy, and he inspired so many. He's the finest example of how to grow old. Never give up. Eat your tomatoes. And take those 3 deep breaths. And I'm going to see you in every mountaintop. L'chaim, Daddy.
I'd like to call on Ben, one of the grandchildren, to give the next eulogy.
Grandpa Bill, as we knew him, had a special relationship with each one of his 5 grandchildren, and he nurtured these bonds in a way that made us each feel uniquely loved and appreciated. To honor our Grandpa Bill as one of his 5 grandchildren was the only thing we can call him, was to spend time with him, to call him and tell him what was going on in your life. My own relationship with Grandpa Bill was marked by a tradition that I'll cherish forever. That was calling him every time I traveled, and especially from the top of each ski hill. Without exception, every ski trip included a call to Grandpa Bill. On a most recent trip with my brother Yanni, we were in Japan, and we called Grandpa to share what it was like. You know, and even with all his friends and adventures that he had, Grandpa Bill said to me, "I've never had a call from so far away. Maybe next year I'll go with you." Of course, he also never forgot to add his simple yet wise advice. Make sure to take 3 deep breaths. Now, his grandchildren didn't call and visit and share their life stories with Grandpa Bill because he asked. We did those things all the time because we knew he would love to share in the experience with us, and he showed how much excitement he had in listening. And this story isn't just mine, it's a story shared amongst all his grandchildren. Lauren in California, Nicole, New York, Yanni, Vancouver, and Mark, also in California. He celebrated each and every one of our achievements together and as individuals as if they were the greatest thing in the world, whether it's new jobs, graduating university, and big life moments like weddings. And no matter what Lauren, Mark, Nicole, myself, or Yanni were doing, Grandpa made each one of us feel like we were special and that our accomplishments were extraordinary. Every conversation, he made sure to thank me for calling. His gratitude to his grandchildren and his interest in what his grandchildren did are things that will carry with us forever. In my last long conversation with Grandpa Bill just 3 weeks ago, he gave me his last piece of advice that will stick with me. He said, just be curious about the world and people. And in the eyes of his grandchildren, he showed us how to do that. How to be curious by being eager to learn, to engage, and be part of everyone's story around him. We're very proud, as his 5 grandchildren, to have shared a life with him.
I'd like to thank members of the family for sharing such beautiful words about Bill, who was so special to many of us and with whom I enjoyed a relationship. I really loved him. He really was a very special man, tremendous warmth and positivity. And I want to pay tribute on behalf of Congregation Beth Ora. Bill was a founding member of the community. He was there with my predecessor, Rabbi Halpern, right at the beginning, and it was a very important part of our synagogue, and we used to see him there a lot. Jewish tradition was important to him. All of his children went to Jewish schools, not just elementary school, but also high school. For high holidays, he always made sure that the family had tickets, and it was great to be with so many members of the family in the synagogue. And when the kids graduated high school, the parents, Marilyn and Bill, made sure that they would visit Israel. It was very important that they would have that experience. And this traditional Jewish identity that Bill had underscored another key value in his life. It was expressed in a way in the regularity or the frequency with which he would come to synagogue, because he would come for the yortzites of members of his family. So it would seem quite a lot, coming to shul for those yortzites. And it was family, which was really at the center of Bill's life. That traditional Jewish value of being centered around family. Bill was orphaned at the age of 20. And that loss, that sense of being by himself in a certain way, prompted him, I think, and I understand, to connect with people, and particularly to connect with his family, with his brothers. He had a very strong connection with his brothers. He was the youngest of 6 children, and some of his brothers were at war in World War II, and he received letters from them. And so from that critical moment in his life, I'm sure before as well, but very much from that moment, family became very central. And that's the way in which he and Marilyn raised the children. There always were Sunday barbecues at Bill's brother's house. There were the family road trips to Ohio and New York, Quebec City, to all the different places to visit Bill's siblings. And he would always be admonishing his children to go in the same path, to take care of family and to be sure to be in touch. On Remembrance Day each year, Bill was always made sure that there would be a picture in the Gazette of his brothers who fought in the war. This was such an important value to him, and that's why he became such an incredibly cherished patriarch within the family. making sure that the multiple generations were connected. He showed great love and kindness to members of his extended family. He became beloved Uncle Bill to all the nieces and nephews, and beyond, to his cousins' children, to their grandchildren. He was in touch with his grandnieces and grandnephews, and they would keep in touch with him too. This, of course, was a very important value for Marilyn as well, and she was really the linchpin keeping everyone together. And in the last few years in particular, Bill has played that role, keeping the family together. He was a very proud father. I remember how much joy he had when he spoke about his children, how happy he was when they would all come together. He was proud of their accomplishments. He would talk all the time about his children and about his grandchildren. Bill died on Tisha B'Av, the saddest day of the Jewish year, the day when the Jewish temples were destroyed. And our sages say that the second temple was destroyed because of hatred amongst people. And the answer to that hatred is love. The way in which we fix the brokenness of the world is by spreading love. And Bill's life was a life of love, and his legacy must be a legacy of love for all of us. May the love he felt for us, and particularly for his family, inspire you to extend, to grow that love far and wide, and especially to your own families, continuing his legacy and his tradition. Yehi zichra baruch. May his memory be a blessing. Amen. Rabbi Ben Shimon will now intone the memorial prayer. Please rise.
Eilem ale rachamim, shochein bameromim, hamtzeim menucha nechona, al kanfei hashechina, b'ma'alot kedoshim uteorim, kezohar arakia mazhirim, et nishmat Zay ben David she'olach le'olamo began Eden menuchato lachein bar rachamim yastirehu b'seiter kenafav le'olamim v'yitzror mitzror achayim et nishmato Adonai hu nachalato v'yanuach b'shalom al mishkavo v'nomar Amen.
The burial will take place at the Beth Ora congregation section of the Kahal Israel Memorial Park in Dolod. The Shiva will be at 6625 Mackle Road, apartment 901 in Kotze Luke. That will be today from 7 to 9 p.m., Friday from 3 to 5 p.m., and Sunday from 2 to 4:30 and 7 to 9 p.m. Evening services on Thursday and Sunday will be at 7:30 p.m. Can the pallbearers please come forward?
fall behind it. You'll follow behind us. We're not lifting. Wheel it